Thank you so much. And thank you so much to Maddie's Fund for having us today. My name is Kristen Hassen, and I'm here with my colleague, Kelly Duer. And somehow, this is the first time we've ever done this presentation. Kelly and I have presented together dozens of times on many subjects, including adult dogs, foster care, marketing, social media, and much more. And we have never talked about this, despite the fact that this is one of the most important things either of us has written about or discussed. And we're going to give you really brief bios. We're going to race through a ton of information today. And then we're going to try to save plenty of time for questions and answers. We know that you do have questions about this, and it is a complex topic. There's no simple solutions. So we're going to save plenty of time for that today. So we will be going pretty quickly through the material. And this is also going to be part one of two. We're going to continue this conversation because we know we're going to run out of time today. There's so much to cover. So you're here today to talk about the difference between marketing and adoption counseling of pets. And what Kelly and I are going to argue is that those should be kept separate, that our marketing should be positive, regardless of the animal's history, the animal's behavior, the animal's medical condition, and that the counseling process should be where other information is disclosed. So we invited you here, whether you agree or disagree. We really want to hear your questions and concerns. So looking forward to that. I have been leading government animal shelters for about a decade, and I led the first shelter I helped to lead in Fairfax, Virginia was a police department shelter, very conservative public safety mandate. I went on to lead organizations in Austin, Texas, and Tucson, Arizona, municipal government agencies, both with strong public safety agendas, and both who directly serve taxpayers. And so I'm well aware of the pressures that are put on us to create positive relationships with our constituents and to be fully transparent with our fosters, adopters, volunteers, and everyone else who works in our organization. So before we get to any of this, if you are thinking that anything that we're saying is about non-transparency, we want to say very much up front, we're actually fully committed to full transparency and to improving safety. Actually seeing improvements in safety, reduction in bites. And so everything we're going to talk about today is really done with that in mind. And so particularly those of you here from government agencies who have those concerns, we're going to address some of those. I now lead a project called Human Animal Support Services through American Pets Alive, supported by Maddie's Fund and a number of other organizations. And it's a collaborative of about 5,000 individuals within and outside of animal welfare. And we've all come together to say that the world is really at a turning point. COVID has changed the game, and the time for incremental change is over. We need to make broad, sweeping changes to animal services. Animal services have always operated on the idea that our job is to separate animals and people. And human animal support services starts with the opposite agenda, that our job first and foremost is to maintain and support the bond between humans and animals. And so we're doing this presentation really with that in mind, and the idea that we're creating connection for our pets. So that is what is guiding much of our presentation today. So I guess before we get started, Kelly, if you would introduce yourself and just say a few words about why you are here.
Sure. Hi, I'm Kelly Duer. I'm foster care specialist for Maddie's Fund. I started in child welfare, and I worked in the beginning with coordinating a temporary foster program that brought kids from Colombia and Russia to the US for about 6 weeks and worked to find them adoptive homes. The people who founded the organization were marketing execs, and they theorized that there are the 8 million children worldwide that don't have any type of family, and the way to get them permanent homes is to get people to know them and to bring them here. People meet them, and then we would end up being adopted. Older child adoption is very uncommon. My husband and I were in our late 20s, and we were like, we're not ready for kids, but we could totally do 6 weeks. And so we did. We got 2 children. Manuel and Sandra were 11 and 12 when they came in 2005. We found them a family. We found them a backup family. We found them a backup adopter for the backup adopter. And then we were like, you know what? We're going to adopt them. So we actually, they are the reason that I do this work. I started volunteering at our local shelter because Annie, our daughter, was looking to go into to work with animals, and I wanted to have something I could do with her that would kind of help us bond, and also to help her get her career started. So I'm going to share my screen.
So we're gonna talk a little bit about child welfare today too, because one of the commitments we've made is to try to learn from other fields and to learn what mistakes others have made. And when you think about that in terms of, say, human foster care, animal foster care is still really in its infancy relative to child foster care. And so we're able to learn lessons from the child welfare movement that can help us avoid making some of the same mistakes. So we're going to be tying our work today into child welfare for exactly that reason.
Okay, I'm going to start with, one sec, the child welfare system and how that works. But first, I'm going to tell you a little about our adoption. I spoke with Annie today. She gave me permission to share this information with you all. So this is her biography for the orphanage. About 2 years before we met her, they wrote this. I am not going to translate the whole thing, but very basically, this is the information that was posted publicly about her. Things like she likes tomatoes and her doll. She doesn't like broccoli, eggplant, or running. She doesn't have parents and it makes her feel sad. She wants to be a doctor. And yes, that tiny thing in her arms is actually a very little piglet. My son was with a cow. It is. So this is the information that they gave us about her initially before we, while they were, publicly. After this, when we decided we were going to host the 2 for temporary foster, we got about a 3-page packet, and it had more information about them and their backgrounds. Right before the adoption, they sent us about a 15-page packet that had even more information about their backgrounds. And when we adopted them, we were able to access their full records, and that was like 6 inches of documents on everything that they did while they were in Colombia. What's interesting with this bio, though, is that it is the public information, and because of privacy, there were a lot of things they couldn't say, and there were a lot of things that they didn't tell us in this narrative. Things like, both of my children have severe trauma in their background that would go on to impact all of our lives. It doesn't say anything in here about the fact that a test that was given to her in Colombia when she was very, very scared labeled her so intellectually disabled that she would be unable to live on her own. That did not come out to be the case, but that was what they believed at the time, or that she had several pretty severe health issues. That information would have been probably it would have been far over the privacy line. So in the US, we are really, children have protections about their privacy. Multiple national and worldwide laws on privacy for children outline what you can disclose, when you can disclose it, who you can disclose it to. Even people who are working with the children sometimes are not able to get certain information. And so when I was looking at this, this one is National UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which outlines child privacy rights. And in the US, we have even more laws. I found numerous toolkits on confidentiality and how you can disclose information. And if you can look up there at the top, this booklet is 129 pages long, and it's only about what you can disclose and when about children. So I was looking up how the child welfare system handles public narratives. One of the things that really got me was the principles behind creating public narratives. This is from Adopt US Kids. It is an organization that works to connect families interested in adoption and foster care with resources, and to help the agencies responsible for finding adopters and foster families to get connected with them. So they have quite a bit of great information. This one is principles behind public narratives and biographies for kids. And it says, we believe the information about children must be shared on a continuum, similar to what I just described that we went through with Annie. And that the information needs to be positive descriptions, available to all, and information about challenges and support needs only provided to, in this case, home-studied families, but as we don't really do that in animal welfare, just people who were inquiring, basically. And they only give that information through private narratives and conversations. They also had this great document that outlined how to write a bio for a child. And it was so interesting. It has what to include, what not to include, different principles, and all kinds of information. We have a document that we will be posting a link to in the chat, and it has a link to this website. But what not to include is a long list. Things about their birth family, their mental health, things about their placements, medical information, any behavioral challenges, intellectual ability or educational challenges, any allusion to sexual orientation or gender identity, things that can limit potential families, like that you may be looking for a two-parent family or a family of a certain race or religion or other fixed characteristics.
Can you stop here? I just want to read for people who are listening. This introduction is critical, and we're going to start talking about animals specifically in a minute, but the introduction says your first obligation when creating a child's profile is to protect the safety and dignity of the child. No one should be able to find a child using the information provided. The child should not be embarrassed by any information contained within it. And this poses a unique challenge for us in animal welfare. But the idea that a child should have safety and dignity, we believe should also translate onto the animals in our care. And remember that in the child welfare system, and Kelly will talk a little bit more about this, you're also dealing with children with severe behavioral and health conditions oftentimes. And so the rules aren't terribly different. And so this idea, if we imagine translating this onto animals, our first starting point is just to ask you to imagine how that would change things.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. And if anything, those children have even more protections on their privacy. So we're going to talk a little bit. Emotional connection is the most basic goal of any marketing. What you are trying to do is make an emotional connection between a pet and a potential adopter or a potential foster or a supporter. So always remember that and go back to it. Ask yourself, will what I'm telling or showing the public help people to connect with this pet? And that is probably the most basic goal I can give you. So things to include in a pet's public profile. You got your first sentence with the hook, strengths, positive stories about them, things they like and their quirks, what it might be like to be their adopter or foster, very basic information about their history, and in a way that can help create emotional connections. And then in positive quotes from people who know them. I'm sure that they're are other things that you can think of that are positive that might work in there. A first sentence with a hook, and this is kind of a guideline of any good writing. You want your first sentence to have that punch so that people get emotionally connected and they want to keep reading. So anytime you're writing a bio, always have a hook. This one was one, this cat's fur really stood out to me, and it starts with here he is, the perfect kitten to go with your 6-inch mohawk. And it, it's different, so it kind of gains the interest.
Can you go back and read the rest of that for people who are listening?
Sure. Here he is, the perfect kitten to go with your 6-inch mohawk. Sage is a cat who reflects your anti-consumerist values and whose badass coat puts your motorcycle jacket to shame. This Saturday, pull on your steel-toed docks and come out and adopt your new little monster. And that cat, when we had the adoption event that weekend, there were 4 people who came in and went right for Sage. It was quite interesting. Strengths. So the strengths of a pet, if they, no tricks, or if they, the things that they, anything that they can do that is a strength. Positive stories that show the pet's personality through behaviors and interactions with others. This is probably one of the most important ones. Stories are so powerful with emotional connection. Research has shown that our brains are wired to emotionally connect with stories. So they're just like this perfect mix of for our brains in order to help connect with people. This picture is a cat that I fostered. His name was Guy. He was terrible in the shelter. He almost got euthanized for behavior many times. He acted feral and was hissy and growly, and a couple of staff ended up working with him, and they finally got him to the point where they were comfortable sending him home with a behavioral foster. And about a week after we got him, I had about 15 people over, and this cat went from one person to the next in a circle for 2 hours, getting attention from every single person at that party. He was like the life of the party. And that story was what got him adopted. Things that they like, including food, games, toys. This little dog is from Fulton County. She is called Hugs. And this video is about 10 minutes of, I don't know why that disappeared. About 10 minutes of her laying on this person and hugging them. It's adorable. Is this cute quirks? I think it is. This one is it's a cute little bio. It's written by a volunteer that took this dog on a field trip. But one of the things in here really got me. When we would stop petting her, Pebbles would lean in close to us and subtly wag her tail to request more. Those little quirks that can help you to connect with them, that is exactly what people need. Positive quotes from people who know them. And these are kind of my favorites because they do several different things. First of all, it's social proof. It is someone else loves this pet, and it just kind of, it's like having great Yelp reviews. But for a couple other reasons, other people, especially people who have taken the dog or cat into foster, have a lot of insight about them and how they act in a home. It's also really reinforcing when you quote volunteers and fosters. It's reinforcing to them because their quotes get up there, and it helps to also keep them engaged with your organization, and it helps to keep them engaging on your social media as well. But the last thing is that it's easy for you. If they write up a 4-sentence thing, it's super easy to take it and post it, as opposed to having to think of a whole bunch of stuff to put. And then very basic information about their history that can help create emotional connections. This I found just from, I think it was like yesterday or Monday. This dog at Pima Animal Care Center had randomly wandered into a Hertz, and just went into the lobby and like started hanging out. And so, but just that story, the fact that the dog just like totally on his own was like, oh, hey, I think I'll just, hang out here in the lobby. That story can help create an emotional connection. It did with me. I just could picture him there, and it was being adorable. What it might look like to be their adopter or foster. These can be really, really effective. This one was written by a friend of mine, Rachel. I won't read the whole thing, but basically it goes through the whole day and what Nala would be thinking and what would be happening. But we wake up in the morning and I have slept peacefully next to you all night. You wake up and give me lots of love and belly rubs. We then head out on a walk while I do my business quickly, since I know you need to head to work. And although I would love for you to stay home with me. It just goes through the whole day. She got numerous inquiries about her from this profile. And Kristen.
So these are what your pet's bios should look like. And when we talk about bios, we mean publicly posted information. So this is information that is posted on social media, in marketing materials, and your pet's profile in your shelter software system, and anywhere else that the public can access this information. The first question that comes up when we talk about this is, okay, we deal with a lot of pets with either unknown histories, pets that have negative behavior in shelter, or pets that have ongoing illnesses, or pets with severe known behavioral history or moderate known behavioral history. I get it for your average animal, but what about protecting the public? And isn't this lying to the public? And so we tried to start off the presentation showing you that the child welfare system has made a really clear decision to use marketing for what it is, to market and get attention to the child. And then once the person is in the system or has expressed interest, met the child, then the disclosures around anything that could be considered negative begin. And we're advocating the same thing for animals, and we mean all animals, not just the perfect ones. So the first question that comes up is around liability, and we want to direct you. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that today, though. In our follow-up conversation, we're going to have a discussion panel, and we'll talk more about that at the end. We want to point you to a resource written by attorney Ryan Clinton. It's called Could We Get Sued for That? An Introduction to Managing Liability Risks at Animal Shelters and Rescues. What we did for you today is created kind of an SOP/resource guide that includes almost everything we're saying today. And this is one of the resources and references in that document. We've already posted the link to that document and we'll post it again. But if you're wondering about protecting your organization, this is a great place to start, and it goes through the most important pieces around liability and protecting the organization. And marketing using negative information is not included as a way to protect your organization. I see the question also about, we do have a question I just want to address really quickly. If you don't have any information about the pets and you want to get something posted, that's fine. If you don't, maybe you just have a pet that's come in and you don't have any information. If you just want to post the pet, you can just be honest and say, this pet just came in. We don't have a lot of information on it. Especially if that's like a highly desirable or easy to adopt animal. If it is an animal that you think may be a little harder, let's say an 8-year-old medium or large mixed breed dog, I have a volunteer spend an hour with that pet and have them tell you about their interactions with the animal or something fun they did, or even better, send that pet for a field trip foster and get some great pictures if you do want to include positive information. Kelly? Okay.
So ensuring transparency, you want to make sure that you have SOPs for adoption and foster that have explicit steps for disclosing history to people who are taking pets home. You also may want to use addendums, especially if the pet has a behavioral history that you want to confirm that you've given them the information that they need, and then they can sign off on it. And you may want to do these verbal and in print. My cat did not give me permission to post this.
That's awesome. Yeah, so when you do, at the disclosure phase, which is after the marketing phase, we do advocate that you provide everything that you know about the animal, all objective known information, that you do provide that both verbally and in writing to the adopter or foster prior to the animal leaving the building. So this is sort of a both situation. You can have positive marking and you can have full transparency.
Another thing, I think people ask, well, what about pets that you don't want to go home with a family that has children or that has another pet? This is absolutely possible. What we're proposing is that you create maybe an internal memo for staff, or a bio that you give to people who inquire about the pet, not publicly. Where you have like the secondary level of information and what you're looking for in the adopter. One of the things I think in animal welfare that is really tough is that, you get a pet, you can't be adopted with, or you've found out maybe you don't want to adopt it to a family with pets or kids, but it's like they're the unicorns of animal welfare. Everybody wants adopters who are like this, but they can be really, really hard to find. And they're kind of like, and so I was wondering at one point, well, how many of them are there? Like, there've got to be a good amount of people out there that don't have pets or kids. So I look back at the data from the Fairfax Behavior Foster Study. So in this study, there is a link in the document. There were 52 dogs whose lives were at risk for behavior, and they were placed into foster over an 18-month period. The average time from foster placement to adoption was about 3 weeks. I looked at the animals that we had in our house. There were 18 of them, and there were several that I was, planning to place in homes without kids or without pets, or, a combination of the two. So these are the placement of the dogs that were in my house. So 4 went to homes with kids and other pets. 3 went to homes with no kids. 6 went to homes with no other pets. And 5 went to homes with no kids or other pets. This is a lot of unicorns. And what was really interesting was so many of them got adopted within like 3 weeks. And it was because they were marketed without any adoption counseling. And as soon as they inquired, then I would start the process of talking to them about the dog's needs.
Okay, so we are going to kind of go quickly through this next section because you're all very familiar with what we're about to show you. And this is interactive. So what we want to do is, as we share an example, we're asking you to put in the chat some examples. So Kelly, what's the first negative marketing thing that we see quite often? Oh. Okay, blatant stop signs in the marketing. So this would be no kids, no other pets, no men, no kids under 12, no apartments. Can you think of any others we're missing when we're talking about blatant stop signs? You can put them in the chat. So these are things where people just say, absolutely not. We see these in marketing posts all the time. No stairs, no apartments, needs fence. Yeah, exactly. Blatant yard required, no small dogs. You guys got it. No cats. Yes.
I think I accidentally gave away the slide, but I was going to ask, what are the things that you market using caveats? Like any type of product or anything. What are the only things that we market using caveats and warnings?
Alcohol.
Right. Mm-hmm. Cigarettes, alcohol, prescriptions. because they can hurt you, and because the research says that when you put a warning like that on them, people won't take them home. Sorry, go ahead.
We can keep moving. Here's another one we see a lot, and you're probably going to have other examples. Veiled stop signs. So this one example is Buffy would do best in a house with adults or older children. So we're still saying that this dog should not be housed with young children, but we're saying it in a way that's using a little bit softer language. But still, what our potential adopters and fosters hear is very specific.
And the graphic here is proof of this that I found in Real Simple magazine. It basically takes all of the wording that we've done, like loves to hike, and says what they think it really means, which says he requires two plus hours of exercise a day, blah, 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 blah. So.
And we are looking at the chat. I'm watching the chat. I just want you all to know, I'm watching the Q&A, and we're going to answer all of these. Some of them we're answering in the presentation, so I'm intentionally not getting to them yet. How about this one? Labeling a pet by their issue. So this is Cindy is a ringworm cat, or Bo is a behavior dog. So you'll see these a lot. What other issues do you see pets labeled by? We gave some examples, FIV, distempered, but go ahead and throw yours in the chat. What this does is it puts the symptom before the actual animal. So it's saying a ringworm kitten is really different than saying a adorable 6-week-old kitten who is on his way to recovering from ringworm thanks to the help of loving volunteers, right? Like, you can even mention the ringworm, but when you put that at the front of the post, you're really defining that animal. And Kelly made the really important point that when we do that, it's almost as to the public, they don't know that that will ever go away. So if we say behavior dog, they don't know, they think that dog will have, quote, behavior for the rest of its life. Heartworms, yes, dog selective, game dogs, fighting victims. These are great. We're going to save all these examples, by the way. So you're actually doing this for a reason. We're going to make a list. So keep them coming. Let's keep moving though, because there's more to get to. Okay, how about this one? This is really fun. Lack of any or adequate positive information. So this is a pet that's marketed. Sasha is an 8-year-old cat whose owner didn't want her anymore. So if you have other examples of that, I'm not sure it'll be easy to generate those, but Kelly, what is this picture we're looking at?
So this is a graphic of communication theory and the theory of how we create relationships. So humans create relationships. It's a reciprocal thing. You start with like less important biographical data, things like Annie likes tomatoes and she wants to be a doctor. And as you get to know a person, you both disclose more and more and more, information that is deeper, and that's how relationships are formed.
Right. So we're not putting that core right on the surface, but with this one, it's really a lack of anything positive. It's just, here's this animal, which can serve as a barrier. Oh yeah. Hillary says dog is a female spayed mixed breed. Totally. Yes. That's a great example. Okay. How about this one? Recommendations for the type of owner that should own the pet. We see this one all the time. Fern is looking for an active owner who loves to hike, run, and be outdoors. So do you have other examples of when same-sex owners? Okay, yep, that's when we see. Any other recommendations for types of owners? Someone who's home more often than not, or someone who works from home, yes. Laid back, yes. Couch potato, quiet home. We're going to talk about the homes next. Quiet older person. Kelly, what is this dog? What is this picture?
This is Sage, and she was a really active dog. Her adopters, they were not super active. However, they had a neighbor who ran. And so they would run the dog. And they also bought a fence and used a lot of treat puzzles. So she would have been marketed in a lot of places that her owners needed to be active, but they were able to have a great relationship in a different way.
Person who doesn't have many guests over. Not a lot of people going out of the home. All right, let's keep going. Creates blanket restriction based on shelter behavior. Our example is Thrasher is aggressive towards other cats and should be an only cat. Or Thrasher is aggressive towards other cats in the shelter and should be an only cat. So I think we have a real life example here too, Kelly. And go ahead and type yours in if you've seen any of these.
So this dog, there's really nothing in this profile that would help me to emotionally connect with him. But what I wanted to point out in the end is that it talks about his high energy level. And I actually asked the shelter, have they seen him outside the shelter? Has he ever been to foster? Has he been on a field trip? No, they had no idea. So this could be completely shelter stress. They don't actually know that he is in a home, a really energetic dog. And it also says he's dog selective. So an intro would be needed. If it was a family with another dog, he had not been introduced to another dog in the shelter. He was just really very reactive. And so he had these restrictions that, didn't even really necessarily need to be given.
Yes. Here's a good example. Dog pulling on a leash, so needs a fenced yard. Yes, we see this one all the time. Barrier reactive, needs a home with no neighbor dogs. Okay, how about this one? Positive information, but it's buried under stop signs. Peanut warms up slowly to new people and doesn't like men, but once he bonds with you, he's a great dog. What would that tell you as the adopter? Like, we see this one a lot as people are trying to soften things, but they're coming out the gate with this negative information, and most people don't get past that first sentence. Peanut warms up slowly and doesn't like men. Okay, here's another one. Yeah, shy and timid at first, but loves to cuddle when he warms up to you. Okay, let's get through the rest of these super quick. Descriptions of negative or undesirable kennel behavior, period. All the time we see this. Carlos is highly leash reactive and kennel reactive. Do you think the public has any idea what that means? No, it doesn't sound good though, right? Recommendations for what the pet needs or the type of household where the pet should live. So this is a little different than the kind of person they should live with. This is about the home environment, and we see this one all the time as well. Java would do best in a quiet home without a lot of activity. Like, what that does for the person on the other end when we think about the person adopting is they're going to say, I live with my partner, it's just us, but we like to have people over. So I'm not going to look at this cat because this really wouldn't be a good fit. This is a really common thing, but we're not thinking about how that information is being received. And keep giving your examples. These are awesome.
This is Patty. She had severe separation anxiety and was destructive on a couple of occasions. She was adopted to a woman who rented an apartment over a clock shop. It was like, I met her. I told her all about it. I showed her what she had done in the house. So she knew everything about it. And she was like, I can handle it. And I was like, okay. And she took her home, put her on Prozac, didn't crate her. Perfect. No problems at all.
Okay, describes the pet by their behavior in the shelter as if this is an innate quality. So this is a dog that has shelter behavior, and it's being described as if that is that animal's behavior. And Kelly, we're going to race through these, so probably not get to too many of the other stories, but this is just one example. But we use the language, Patty is a fearful and anxious dog who needs a lot of patience. In reality, we really don't know that. We're talking about behavior in a very limited environment, especially if the pet has been a foster. but people are making this leap over to the home, even though we know the home behavior likely won't reflect the behavior, or possibly won't reflect the behavior in shelter, or with another person. And so we make this set of assumptions based on something that's going on in the shelter. This one's probably bothering me the most lately, because it's like, this one tells the viewer a negative trait, but tries to offer context. So we use the example, Otter has bitten 2 other dogs, but he can be safely managed by the right owner. We see this in marketing all the time, and it is just as damaging as just sharing the negative information without the context. And I guess because of this amazing picture, you're going to have to tell this quick story, Kelly.
Oh, this is Java. She is right here. There's not really a story behind this, but I've got one later.
Well, I guess the negative story would be Java is an incontinent cat who can't use her back legs and can't pee on her own, but she's really cute.
Oh yeah, that story.
All right, finally, to round this out, we're at ratings and rankings, and these, Kelly, you lead us off for this one.
Okay, I'm going to show you something. I want you to type in the chat what first comes to your mind, okay? When you see that graphic, what do you think? Run.
All right, good. Well, so this has been a growing trend, and we're seeing a lot more of this, and it is basically organizations are giving rankings or ratings to pets based on different characteristics or traits. And exactly, this is also how we do Google reviews. It's how we do Yelp reviews. This is a universal symbol for nope. So when we're doing this to animals, we are really, really doing them a disservice. And I would say this really goes into the dignity issue of we're not allowing them dignity when we give them these simple ratings. It simply doesn't account for the complexity of behavior. And it also does nothing to protect the future adopters. So we are trying to sort of whack-a-mole these out of existence wherever we're finding them, because they're terribly problematic for shelter pets. And particularly one of the issues is that even if people are adopting these animals and taking them home, they are leaving the shelter with a set of assumptions about that animal that is based on a simple rating system that is probably in no way reflective of the complexity of real life.
Absolutely. And especially with star rankings, there's so much baggage, as you can see, that comes with that.
And then finally, statements that just have unintended perceptions by the public. So this would be like, Kitty is a total lap cat and wants to be on your lap all the time. Okay, sure, you think that's cute, but people that want to take home a cat maybe don't want that. And maybe that's only true because the cat is afraid in the shelter. So we do this a lot to cats where we just sort of try to say something about them, but those aren't perceived necessarily in the way that we think. I think that's all of them, right? Okay, let's go through this really quick and then we'll all right.
Yeah. Potential exceptions, pets with medical needs. As you have seen, Java is right behind me. She's incontinent. If I see a cat with the dangly little leggies, my heart just explodes. So there are people who have, dealt with certain medical needs or have experience with them, or maybe have had them themselves, that it's possible that they connect more with these types of pets. So that's a potential. Also, anti-marketing. Oops. When you market a pet kind of backwards, it's supposed to be funny, and it should be funny. When you say all the things about the pet, but you make it kind of funny and relatable. I'm not going to go too much into this because but there is a video linked on the handout. And then also pets that have significant behavior histories who are highly adoptable, like this Cocker Spaniel I fostered who had a multiple bite history. And I knew if we didn't do something, he was going to get a bazillion inquiries. And so we were able to match him with the right person, but I did have to do it a little bit differently than I like to. So strategies for increasing the efficiency, redirecting potential adopters. If they come in or they call and they say, hey, we want to adopt, Paco, and Paco's not good with kids, but they have kids, have a little list. These are a few dogs that we'd like to show you because they, have lived with kids in the past. Targeted marketing, which I'll talk about in a sec, and then having templates for email responses that can help you. So Sweet Jane was a dog that we fostered. She was very reactive to new people. We did not want to adopt her out with kids, and we marketed her and put stuff up all the time. Every single person who wrote in over a period of months was a family with kids, and we could not figure it out. And I talked to another friend who was helping me with her, and I said, what are we going to do? Maybe we should start putting, the adoption counseling in the marketing. And she was like, all right, first, before we do this, why don't we go look back at our marketing and see if there's anything there that bumps out at us. And I looked back and I realized just about every picture that Sweet Jane was in, she was in with my daughter, who was like 19 at the time, but she looks like she's 12. And so we were inadvertently marketing directly to people with kids. So that helped. We ended up retooling the campaigns. We started marketing to adults, and that worked. And we were able to find her a great home. Template email responses are really, really helpful, especially for dogs that, with people and pets, so that when somebody writes in, you don't have to every time type in, I use templates all the time. There is this program called Cloud HQ for Gmail that I use where you can do that really easily.
I want to talk about the real issues here, because so what we've told you so far today is what you should be doing with all of your pet bios, and what we are advocating organizations stop doing. But I want to get to the higher sort of how this all ties together. So we are looking to protect the safety and dignity of our shelter pets. We're also looking to find, adopt, and foster homes for more challenging animals. And so by marketing, you are able to do that connection establishment so that you can set up a meet and greet, have people meet the animal, and then disclose all of the relevant information to them. There are 4 main criticisms that come up whenever we talk about this, and we have been talking about this for about 6 years now. First of all, the first one is going to be the liability concern that somehow we don't protect public safety if we do not do negative marketing. So there are no known successful lawsuits. I don't actually even know of any filed lawsuits related to whether you marketed an animal with positive or negative information. The most important thing to do to protect your organization's liability is both in writing and verbally to share all known history with adopters and fosters prior to placing that animal. And if it's an animal that has stranger danger, is likely to nip at a potential adopter, it's important to also disclose that to that person prior to the meet and greet. But as far as marketing, there is no reasonable data-based, research-based argument that negative marketing protects your organization in any way. The second main argument we get is about time. Shelter workers are incredibly busy, having led 2 of the nation's larger open admission shelters with intakes around 20,000 animals a year. I know why that exists and why people struggle. They feel that they might as well just tell people up front because it just saves time. They don't have to then go explain. So 2 things kind of take that argument apart. One is that you may save time in talking to that person and then filling them in on that pet's history after they've already come to see it. Before they've come to see it. So you may save time just by putting that negative marketing up front. However, you lose the potential of that person to adopt from you. And Many of us haven't gone online lately and done this. You may never have. Go online and say, I'd like to adopt a dog in my zip code or my city. You will find that you are routed to websites that are showing you hundreds of animals from many, many, many different organizations. So when you lose that person, when they see all of your negative marketing and they go to another organization, you've lost the potential of that person to adopt a pet from you. You've also lost all your time savings because the animals are going to stay in your care so much longer. So even that time savings, that's going to get lost out when those animals, the length of stay is extended because of the negative marketing and you don't have people adopting those pets. The third argument is related. What about when people see a pet online, we don't disclose everything, they come to see it and they're disgruntled or they feel tricked? There are a couple of ways to prevent this, although we rarely hear about this happening. Number one is just to clearly write your adoption process or your foster process online and share it up front with people. Let the community know that you have a particular process that you follow for adoptions and fosters, and then they are able to make the decision about whether they want to go through that. The second thing to do is if someone comes to the organization and finds that pet they were looking at is inappropriate, have 3 to 5 to 10 other animals that they can look at right away. Your goal should be to send every person home with a pet, but there's no reason it has to be that one pet that initially got their attention. And organizations that do this find that they have a high rate of success when they follow this, and they have now captured that adopter, they brought them into the organization, and they found a pet home for either that pet or another pet. And the last thing we hear is, don't we owe it to the public to be fully transparent? And we absolutely owe it to the public to be fully transparent. It is our duty, and it does protect our organization. But transparency and marketing are two different things. And we are doing a disservice to our pets, because when we're writing everything we know about that pet in a bio, that information is typically going to be slated towards the negative, because we're watching for negative behavior in the shelter. Like if I'm walking by a dog 6 times, I'm not noting when that dog's standing at the front of the kennel. I'm not noting when I got it out and took it on a walk. I'm noting when that dog gave a strange stare at someone. We are already prone and disposition to the negative in animal sheltering. So more often than not, the negative is going to stand out in those bios. And when we do that, we are not sharing very much real information about that pet. When it comes to known history, sure, that known history is known, but we're not able to contextualize it if we're just putting it in a 1-sentence bio. So to say that, when I'm really exhausted, I tend to get very teary. This is sort of a lifelong thing. And if I were in an animal shelter not sleeping, I would be teary all the time. Well, if that got translated into my bio, it would say something like, Kristen's walking around crying most of the time, and she has a depression issue, and we've put her on meds. This would not capture why I was crying all the time. It's because I'm sleep deprived. And in a shelter, this happens all the time, that we take these shelter behaviors and we do this to animals. And we take away their chances of finding a loving home. And so what we advocate is that you have positive only marketing for all of your animals, and that you then have a consistent shared process to take your adopters and fosters through getting to know that pet. Sort of like Kelly's onion picture. You're kind of bringing them into the layers of that animal, knowing that you're only ever going to give them maybe 2 to 3 layers of that pet. Kelly, what did I miss?
All right, we have a bunch of questions. Awesome. If these really strong posts are generating lots of inquiries, how often is that converting to an actual adoption once they learn more about the animal with their behavior issues, health issues, etc.? Do you feel that adoption staff is resentful of having their time wasted if you generate a lot of inquiries from people who wouldn't be a good match if they had more information? I'll start on that and say that having templates makes it super easy, especially if they know that like so-and-so is going to be posted on this day. They can grab like 3 the information for like 3 dogs who or cats who can live with kids or whatever it is, so that they have it right there and they can just cut and paste it right into the email or onto the phone. I think that here I think when you're worrying about time wasted, think about this. You have a dog who can't be adopted with other dogs or kids. That dog could be in your shelter for 3 years or a very long time, while if you do put that in their profile, versus generally a much shorter time when you're not, is the time that your organization is spending caring for that dog, making sure volunteers are coming and working with that dog, feeding that dog. Think of that, how much work it is for your organization to care for a pet for an extended period of time. And is, a few extra inquiries. I mean, to me, there's just no comparison.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're getting some questions, and I know we're getting close to the end of the time. I'm so sorry. We're going to continue this. We're getting some questions about pointed questions. So if you're posting an animal on social media and someone's saying, is he good with dogs? There's a couple ways, or is he good with cats, or is he good with kids? There's a couple of ways to handle that. So one of the things you can do is just ask people to reach out to you and inquire. And we realize that for some pets, they do have a known negative history. So you may have a cat that has a multiple bite history with children, has had small children around, is scared of them and bites them. You have that known history. You don't want to send that cat home with a child. Now, if that is your policy, and we're not suggesting it should be, but if it is, and you get a question about that cat, there's a couple ways to handle that. You can talk to the person prior to them meeting the cat. You can have a volunteer reach out to them and just ask them what they're looking for and give them that information before they come to the organization. We also recommend for animals with known histories considering creating a private bio for the pet, that you can, if people are doing online inquiries, you will have hopefully gotten some information about them. And you can say, based on this information, here's the private bio of this pet, which can offer some more information. What you're missing out on, and 99% of shelters are getting this wrong, you have to then point them to other animals that you have that are appropriate for them. So if you are just going to tell them, no, you shouldn't adopt this pet, it is not helping your bottom line of getting animals out. So we are working to, even if an animal truly is inappropriate, always working to bridge them to another pet. We're out of time, I know. Is that right, Kelly? Yes. Okay, we're out of time.
We are.
Our went way too fast. Yes, I am seeing more and more profiles. I think we're going in the wrong direction on this. We are heading backwards, probably because there was a lot of turnover during COVID, a lot of new folks come in. We've got to keep sharing these messages. We're going to continue this with the panel conversation with people with some diverse opinions on this topic, and some folks with experience in actual dog behavior, because I know that issue is a big one. And what we want to suggest to you now is to go look at your bios, and we guarantee you're going to cringe at least one of them. I don't know any organization that isn't putting some negative information in bios, at least some of the time. Some of our organizations that are standouts for good bios are KC Pet Project, Lifeline Animal Project are awesome. Kelly, are there others that we should mention here?
Like, who was I just talking to? I would say Heartspeak has some great resources for bios.
Yes, Heartspeak is another organization. They're not an animal shelter, but they provide a ton of great resources for making positive bios. But remember that this really is an ethics issue, and it's about dignity and safety of the animals in our care, and that we are really violating that when we're giving this information out in the public. And so it's our hope that within a year, we will have a universal standard for shelter pet marketing, similar to the standard that we have for marketing children in the child welfare system. them. So that's the goal here, and it's going to take a lot of us to get there. So if you haven't visited the Human Animal Support Services website, it's humananimalsupportservices.org. You can sign up to join the project, and we have many different groups working on different aspects of this. We have a communications and marketing working group, as well as a foster working group. So please reach out to us, and we're going to keep this conversation going, because we owe it to our animals to give them a fair chance to get out alive. And we really appreciate you all coming, even those of you who aren't entirely sure you agree. It's really helpful to have you here. We hope to see you for the next part of this discussion. We will plan to do that in the next several weeks, and the date is to be announced, since we decided this morning there was no way we were getting through this in an hour. So talk soon, and feel free to reach out to me as we, in this final minute, I'm putting my email in the chat. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, and we'll be sending a follow-up email. And please check out that resource that we did share.
Absolutely. And I will be in Maddie's Pet Forum for a bit. We have a thread on this and can answer some more questions there as well. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Maddie, for hosting this webinar. We'll see y'all soon.